Good morning, everyone. Today we recognize the dedication of the basilicas of St. Peter and St. Paul. Now, obviously, you would have remembered that last weekend we recognized the dedication of the Lateran Basilica. And that the distinction between that and the two others that we have, because the fourth basilica obviously is Mary Major in Rome as well. So of those four great basilicas we have, only two of them were built over the tombs of the people that died, and that was St. Peter and St. Paul. So we know in the life of St. Peter, more or less where he was put to death, in the area where we now know as St. Peter's Square, which I'm always fascinated about that, because it's elliptical, it's not square. But in that area, and that over the years, the basilica that we see today has developed. And similarly, in the case of St. Paul, outside the walls, that was built over where St. Paul was buried. He didn't die in that location. He died some distance away at Trefontaine. We'll go into that another day. Interestingly enough, St. Peter and St. Paul when they were buried, they were not complete. What happened? Well, remember, St. Peter was crucified upside down, and that it was discovered later on when they were going to bury him, whatever, that his feet were missing. You say, why did that happen? Well, because the Romans were lazy. And they'd attached him to the crucifix in such a way that the easiest way to get him off there when he died was to simply cut his feet off. So they did. In the case of St. Paul, well, of course, we know that he was beheaded. And unfortunately, when he was laid to rest, his head had become separated. And we believe that his head perhaps was interred maybe even in St. John Lateran, or once again, in the area that became St. John Lateran. So the question then is, why do we have these great basilicas that are built over the tombs of these people? Well, I suppose it's just in recognition that that's where they died, or that's where they're entombed. And initially, it became a small monument because that's where it was. And we know that in the case of St. Peter's that there were, in fact, three different basilicas or cathedrals, whatever, built over that site. Where did they start from? Who paid for them? Well, interestingly enough, it was the Roman emperor who started to develop the building of both of those. In fact, initially built a smaller cathedral, whatever it was, over the sites of where they were buried. And then, obviously, as people came in and paid more attention, people voluntarily contributed to things. Till eventually we got to a stage where after some of them had been knocked down or been wiped out or damaged, whatever it is, over the years, when they were rebuilt, obviously the church had to do some fundraising for that. Many benefactors came forward, and now we have those buildings that are so revered. But they're revered not because of the magnitude of them, but because of where they are built, and that is over the graves of the great saints. Have a wonderful day. Keep yourself safe. God bless. Bye-bye.